But today we are going to be both strategic and tactical, and I think it's going to be amazing. We are going to, I'm joined today by Renee and Jeff Funk from the Funk Collection in Orlando, Florida.
Sunny
Hello,
Orlando, Florida.
everyone.
I know.
Yes,
It's
it's
awesome.
sunny,
Excited to
it's
be here.
warm, it's, the heat's
Spring in
starting to
Florida.
come on. Yeah, the heat's starting to come on in Orlando.
You get that little window where it's really nice, and then boom.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, Lee. So we have to be sales related for our city.
Oh, right.
Actually, 8 to 9 months is amazing. And then
That's a
we
good
get a
point.
little snippet where it's like, okay, it's a little warm, but we have pools, we have oceans, and we have all sorts of fun things to take care of that time.
You
That's
have to
fair.
remember, Lee, it's a lot easier to cool off than it is to keep warm.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I dig it.
And it's a
Perfect.
lot more,
Well,
it's typically a little more fun too.
yes, indeed. Agreed. And that's awesome. I'm gonna come visit once once it's safe to do so. So
We're open.
yeah.
We're
So let's
Florida, we're open.
let's dive right in. I'd love to have, I think maybe each of you give a little bit of your background and then tell me more about the company, the team as it stands now. And then we'll talk a little more about, deeper on trajectory and kind of some recent changes you guys have made. Renee, why don't you go first?
Well, hi, my name's Renee Funk. Where do you want me to start? No, I've been a realtor for 7, 8 years now. I like to say I'm a realtor for 2 decades by association because I've been with this awesome, he's my favorite realtor, this guy for 20 years, and he's been licensed for a long time, 21 years, I think now, right?
22.
22. So that makes
22.
me a realtor of 22 years just out of marriage. We've seen it all. I come to the real estate industry at first kicking and screaming a little bit, only to find out that the real estate industry is the most magical industry I've ever experienced. It is a true honor to be a part of the industry and to be able to help the customers with the largest purchase and asset that they are going to build memories in with their families. So I take it very seriously. My background's in customer service. So I've enjoyed the integration of customer service with what one of Jeff's strongest suits is, the technology and forward thinking. So we marry those things together in our jobs.
That's perfect. That's awesome. Jeff, what's your background?
My
Besides
name's
21
Jeffrey.
years, 22
Yeah,
years in real estate.
22 years, you know it. So, my background and been a licensed realtor since 1999. Before that, I was in property management doing short-term vacation rentals in the Walt Disney World area. So I've been in real estate for a pretty long time in one form or another, a lot longer than just the 22 years. I went full time in 2007, ironically, which a lot of people would say that was horrible timing. It was actually perfect timing because we saw an opportunity and we were able to capitalize on that opportunity and make real estate work for us. So we went we went full time, moved our brokerage, and I think there were about 80 agents in the brokerage. Went from literally number 80 to number one within a year. And it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what kind of market you're in, there's always a way to succeed in there, and you just have to think outside the box a lot of times. So even we talk about today's world and low inventories and all these things, there's ways, there's definitely ways to make it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I got an 06 too, and it was probably the best thing I did. I missed all the, just order taking of writing a contract and had to really work for it. So I get that. And that's great. So your current structure is as a team, which I'm sure was obviously intentional if you were in the brokerage space and you dialed it, I won't say back, just shifted to a team. When did the current iteration of the business kind of first come to fruition?
Well, the timeline of our progress was that first it was just Jeff, and he, when he was referencing what he did to dive right in, he built a website, realtyorlando.com. We were broke. Everybody told him that he was crazy, including me. I was like, no, 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 you can't build a website. And he said, yes, 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 I'm going to do it. Just watch, I'm going to do it. So he was a single agent. And then for a few years, he kept saying, would you come work with me? Would you come work with me? And then finally he said, if you don't come work with me, I'm hiring someone else. And so he said, just look at this. And I sat down one day, literally opened, turned on the computer at that time that was in our kitchen. And I said, oh my goodness, I see it. He's really, really onto something, and it's much bigger than one person could ever handle. And so I came in, and then we worked for probably about 2 years, maybe, just
Two to
he and
3
I.
years.
Yep. And then again, continued to grow and grow and grow. And we said, we need to build a team. And so we've now had the Funk collection for about 5 years, which is just been a natural progression of continued growth that dates back to that day when myself and quite a few others said, Jeff, you're crazy. But back then, not a lot of people had real estate websites. I think
Right.
you started our website, Jeff, about like 2 months into one of the big portals that we all know launched their company.
Yeah, I was going to say that's interesting timing because, Facebook technically started in '07, although it wasn't readily available. And so there were all these things. Trulia was out there. I was on Trulia Voices earlier answering consumer questions. Like I remember vividly '07 and '08, and it was very different than it
Active
is
Rain.
now. Yeah,
You
Active
remember
Rain.
Active Rain?
Active Rain. Yes, well, I have a lot of points probably still on Active Rain. But now we're showing our age, so let's.
Yeah, we are.
But
no,
Active Rain still has legs. There's still content in Active Rain that to this day feeds
Right.
us.
Right.
Which is a really valuable point, because we as real estate agents don't realize sometimes when we're doing it right, the content that we put out in the world, if we don't worry so much about the vanity numbers, but how many likes, how many this, how many that content can sustain you in compounding effects for so many years. There's a post on Active Rain that literally we still get phone calls off of to this day that
That's
was
amazing.
from '08.
That's amazing. It totally makes sense. And for those of you who don't know Active Rain, it was loosely speaking an early blogging platform. We'll just kind of keep it that simple, I think, for point of conversation. But it changed hands a few times. I think it either went to Market Leader, or I think it went to Market Leader and then went to Trulia as part of that. And I think that was sold off as part of that. But yeah, it was early blogging in some sense. And yeah, it was great stuff. But that's a great point, Renee. Like sometimes just executing. If you're waiting for the perfect platform to come along, then you're waiting too long. Do it, and then you'll figure out.
It's evergreen content, and that
Right.
I think that's one of the big things when when you're building, is to look at things that are evergreen, that will live on. And I mean, like Renee said, some of the posts that we get calls for, never thought we would get calls from that post, and they still return calls. And but it brings attention to you, and it doesn't cost anything. That's the great thing about it. It's free.
Yeah, and I think that's another. I want to lean into that a little bit because I think that's another really important point, in that we don't always know what is going to be that thing. So to go for it and do a couple of do some posts about local stuff to do one about first time home buyer or mortgage or whatever those pieces are. And then the market's going to dictate to us what is interesting to people and what they click on and what makes them, pick up the phone. So I think that's a really great point. And can you tell us, I don't want to get too in the weeds on the site, but can you tell us a little more about the site? Like, was it IDX driven? Was it focus on leads? Was it focus on SEO? Like what was the early site strategy?
The early, well, we were talking in '07, we were starting to watch the realtor.com, Zillows, and all these sites start building really fast and really hitting the major, keywords, Orlando real estate, things of that nature. So what we decided to go after was evergreen content, but on a long tail keyword strategy. So we, instead of went for Orlando, we started targeting all the subdivisions and communities within Orlando and started writing about that. And we've probably rewritten all those from '07 at some point, but we've just continued to build it. And I think last year during when COVID started, we had kind of looked back to '07 and said, well, what happened last time when the market crashed? And what did we do? Well, we were building a website and we were putting out content. So we said right then, we kind of took a data, look some wounds on there when they started closing down travel and everything, because we do so much, so much of ours is from people from other locations. And we just said, we're going to double down and we're going to start putting out more content. And we spent most of 2020 producing content. The team was still moving and going, but it was a big content focus last year. And going into the website, we just built communities. We had a goal of putting 150 communities up. We did over 300.
Wow.
Yeah, so we put over 300, and we've seen our website statistics go from where we were averaging about 600 people a day to now we're hitting 800, 1,000 a day, unique visitors onto our site. So we can directly see that paying off.
I think that's an interesting thing that people kind of talk about, but maybe don't really strategize and implement, is the idea, there's a saying, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it's, something like scale the unscalable or whatever. Like these big companies, although at some point they're going to be able to do that. At some point they're going to have all that data around that's what they're going for now, every street, every subdivision, all that.
They're getting better.
Yeah, but to be able to do that on a level where like you live there and like you drive through Winter Park and you're like, oh yeah, Winter Park, boom, let's go. That is a way that you can win. It's really smart, but still creating unique content around knowing that area versus, somebody else pulling it from a Wikipedia or whatever.
And I think that what happens is, the average person, when they start searching for real estate, they're going to go to one of the major portals. They probably have the app sitting on their phone already. Right. So they go on there, they start searching for real estate. But when they start getting granular and start getting serious, that's when they start spreading out. So the goal is when they start looking at those 6 or 8 other websites, that our site is sticky, that they hit our site and we have so much content on there that they're going to stay there and they're going to look and they're going to learn. And that at that point gives us the opportunity to develop a relationship with them, with the agent. So we're kind of starting with that, with the content, but then once they sign up, then we start really building the relationship with the agent to consumer.
Yeah. And this seems obvious, but I want to say it out loud. Like, I think more than ever, people really are just looking for that information. They don't want to be called by a freaking real estate agent. They're just like, I just want to look at this house on your site. I just want to read about this area, or like, I don't need 9 agents calling me right away, or 9 auto responses, or 9, texts or whatever. Like, just tell me, I'm trying to learn stuff, And I think too many times, like, we're just trying to force register them after, 2 views and like email them to death. Whereas like, they're going to come in warmer by default. If they spend a minute on your site, they're going to come in warmer and saying, oh, I've read all your blog posts, or I read all about this neighborhood on your site. I'd love to learn, more, or go see something in it, or do you have something coming up in it? So I love that as a strategy. I want to stay, do you mind sharing what platform's that on? Is it like a WordPress site or what?
Right now we're using Real Estate Webmasters.
Okay.
We've been using, and we have a custom site through Real Estate Webmasters.
Cool. Very good. I
knew we launched last year. Yeah.
Okay. Can I touch on that, Lee? Is also what you're leaning into. I'm really passionate about. When a consumer visits a real estate website, right? And Zillow works, Realtor, it all works. But what's really important as realtors that are experts in our hyper-local neighborhoods is picking a lane, picking a platform, whether it's a social media, whether it's your own site, whatever it is, and be there present for them to consume who you are first, consume the data, which brings them deeper in the funnel. And the environment in that funnel has changed, because if we look back to 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, quite frankly, we just got the come represent me on a buy side, come list me, because we were one of the only people who had a hyper local website, right? And so it was a very different landscape. And there's been obviously a progression of that over the years. The consumer who's on any website, any social media consumer, whoever, wherever they're getting the data, they have to see that they like you, see that you're providing them value. And so I think that the confusion with agents at times can be when they register, when they reach out to you, it's just a knock on the door of an opportunity saying, I would like to give you a chance to earn my business. We as humans have to step in and continually showing them value. And it's not about, hi, I want to help you with your home sale. It's more value, more information that shows that you're there to really be a resource. So having, for us, our website, it's been a game changer because they're looking for that information, the hyperlocal information based on subdivisions and communities. It's often not found.
Right. Well, and it just occurred to me while you were saying that too, the fact that it completely works both ways, in the same sense that if you talk to somebody that either hasn't been to your website or just found a house, like, can we see this? You've also got, oh, well, let us send you this article or this post about that area, or, oh, there's some other homes in that area you may want to take a look at. So you are really coming. And again, what a better conversation to have. Did you find what you were looking for on our site, instead of like, you know, are you ready to buy? Can we meet? Do we, it's definitely a whole different dynamic.
It is. And the more that we are able to provide a service that's in one ecosystem, think about any product or service that's out there in the world, right? These things that we have, they want to keep you in this ecosystem, right? They want you in it and they want you to have every element of it. Well, we as realtors should be thinking of ways to continue to do that. So provide more value all within a similar ecosystem so they keep coming back. Like when we send our customers, oh, you're interested in the Windermere area, which is, our primary bread and butter. We're also going to have all the sold data that we send them through the site. We're also going to have custom searches by school zones that are done by geotags, not by human entry of an MLS. So there's things like that that we can do that keeps them coming back with value in mind, and they're in the ecosystem. All feeding to Follow Up Boss, of course.
Right.
Let's not forget our friends at Follow Up Boss.
Right.
That's where it's all going.
Follow Up Boss.
It's been 18 minutes and we didn't mention Follow Up Boss. So
we got to get to Follow Up Boss because, yeah, Jeff, what'd you just say?
If it's not in Follow Up Boss, it didn't happen.
Period.
Exactly right. Period.
Say it again, everybody. If it's not in Follow Up Boss, it didn't happen.
What else is it, just talking about giving value is, I was just talking to somebody about Follow Up Boss, and when they're calling people and they're looking at their timeline and they're trying to remember the person, and they're reading the timeline. I said, question, if you have to look at their timeline to figure out who they are, do you think that they remember you? Like, they don't have Follow Up Boss sitting there. So remember that when you're calling your customers, like, you should know who this is. And that is one of the reasons why we limit how many people that they can have in their database under company leads, company inquiries, that, sphere of influence and past customers, you can build that up to no end. But for the company people, know who's in your database. If you don't know who's in your database, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I want to make sure people kind of got what you said. Like, I don't want to say you breezed through it, but like, you breezed through it enough that I think I'm
a D. I like
Come on. Everybody got it. Move on to the next thing. No, but so what you guys are saying is that you limit company leads to 150 up an agent.
Yep.
Yes.
I think that's brilliant. I think way too many. I talk to so many people that are so enthralled with lead count that they're not even thinking about how many closings they're getting. They're just like, we got 10,000 leads. I'm like, that's great, but are they making money off them? So
well,
I love
and
that.
we like be transparent here. This is a more recent change. I think we implemented And we did a database audit, and we implemented the max of 150 for team generated customer inquiries 3 months ago. And it's been a process. So far, not only do the team members seem to be thrilled and be feeling better about all things that are in their database, but the service level is going to continue to increase. So those who came before us on this philosophy, kudos, because y'all were right. I'll give credit where credit was due. Many of you have been saying, limit the database, limit it.
You don't need
Team-generated
900
only.
smart lists when you only have 150 people in there that you don't know.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. I love that. And so this is a little bit of a pivot, but I think it's a great pivot. And we talked a little bit before, and I really want to go down this route as much as you guys are willing to share. In pandemic, not only the website stuff that Jeff mentioned, but you guys started taking some time to kind of rethink and retool things. And I think some of us did that out of necessity, or some of us did it without fully realizing it. But I think that you guys did it in a more intentional way. And I think you were also kind of brutally honest about some stuff. So can one of you guys speak at maybe a high level? And we'll tackle that question in the chat in just a quick second, but can one of you speak at a high level just about kind of how that started? Like, was there a moment in time where you're like, all right, we got to do this? Or was it like, how did the initiation of that happen?
Well, I think the audit on the database was the first step in that phase, which I give full credit to those who came before us, and then Jeff, because he's been like nudging me, come on, let's do it. And that was the first step. I get often asked, why are you so attached to your CRM, Follow Up Boss? Like, how do you truly operate in a way that if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen? How do you get the adoption from your agents in your CRM? We're struggling. We're not struggling. We get it. But I will say that we haven't been afraid to dive into the system and realize there could be and will be different evolutions of what that database can look like and operate and living and breathing. And it's always going to be changing. We have custom fields. They work, we use them, we leverage them. And then all of a sudden we'll say, like a year or two go by and we'll go, that's not working for us anymore. Let's make some adjustments collectively as a team. We can't be afraid to dive in and try it. The entire reason you have a CRM is to have data points to assess, improve, and grow from. So if we were to get so hung up on trying to launch with it first perfectly, well, then we would probably be here 4.5 years later, 5 years with Follow Up Boss, sitting here with nothing filled out.
Right.
And we're not perfect. We have a long way to go. Follow Up Boss is amazing. They keep giving us all these presents, as all of us as customers, right? I call them like the Christmas presents. You have another update. You have another update. And I go, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell them. It stresses me out a little bit because now I feel FOMO that I'm not adopting it. So the shaking it up, turning it inside out that we're doing right now, which was started by the audit of how many customers were being serviced at once by each team member. We are turning it all inside out, flipping it upside down and saying, what do we need to make sure we're doing to set the agents up for success to serve at the highest level? And it's kind of all hands on deck, Lee. It's not just Jeff and I, it's all the agents. It's our administrative support. It's our transaction coordinator. We're all in it saying, this is amazing. Where's area of improvement? What do we have to do to get it to the next level?
So I want to come. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say one thing real quickly. And Dan will love that I say this, because we were using Follow Up Boss and we felt like we were using it pretty well. It wasn't until we really sat down with Dan and decided that we were going to get the full-blown edition with the dialers, where there was no excuse not to have it in there anymore. Yeah. Now it was, look, all your calls are going through here. We're going to process every single thing through Follow Up Boss, your text messaging, everything. And it just opened everything up. And then we could see that, hey, these people, so when we had you have X amount of people in your database, but these people aren't getting contacted. And we know that you're just not contacting them now, because you can even, I think the thing before was like, well, I'm calling them through my phone, but well, now you can call them through your phone. and
Right.
it just automatically goes in there. So that was a big thing that really got us moving to this point too.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've said this on some other sessions too, where like, and obviously I don't want to make it just a sales pitch for Dialer, but I do also feel strongly about it because it people don't realize it. Like, it's so funny. Before people have it, they're always like, I don't get it. What's the difference? You just have a different phone number. And everybody after they implement it is just like, this is a total game changer. It amuses me to no end, because if you don't have it, you're just like, I don't get it. Why would I do that? Just another number. And everybody that has it is like, this has literally altered my life. It's
From the
really
outside
funny.
looking in, it's hard to explain. And from the inside looking out, you go, how did I not do this a long time ago? And once again, I raise my hand and say, Jeff wanted to do it. There was a little bit of like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And we did it. We implemented the dialer June of 2020. And I have one thing to say, and that was, why did we not make that investment
Right.
3 years ago or whenever it first was initiated? Because best investment we've made. And it's not a commercial. It's the fact. Like, for me, it's a fact. This is what we're living in. If you're a team leader and you're a broker owner, or you're running any organization of multiple people, this is a game changer to have it all. And the adoption is improved. We have nearly full adoption now.
That's awesome.
And,
Yeah, it really is. Go ahead, Jeff.
There was a question from Sydney asking about the
Yeah.
150
Yeah, let's
breakdown,
tackle
which
that
kind
and
of,
then we'll keep down the
which
follow-up.
brings us into so we have 150. It's customer database. Doesn't matter if they're hot, cold. If they're cold and you want them in your database, well, that's taking up a spot. So take those colds out, move them over. We're using ponds, which we recently started using. So we've taken all agents. We have agents that we're talking to and they're in follow-up us. Now they're all in one pond, all the agents. So agents they don't have to set up duplicate leads on there and duplicate contacts and follow-up us. And then the customers, if they're not contacting or communicating with them and they feel like they want to put somebody else in, they can go into the warm pond and fish for a new lead when there are a new customer inquiry and pull them out, but now they have to put one back in. So
Right.
that's how we keep them down to 150. The ponds have been great for that. And now we do have a first call agent, and our first call agent, they call all of our customer inquiries, make sure that there's somebody there, that they're looking for a home. So it narrows so much of the calling out for the agent. But then if the first call agent also goes into the warm pond and starts looking at the warm pond and communicating with them some more too. So
that's so great. And it's just so simple. Like, you want 5 more? Great. You got to give up 5.
Yeah.
You know what else it eliminated is, I understand as agents, we sometimes don't want to let go. I get it. We've invested time, love, passion, the whole 9 yards. But we need to be master sorters so we can be master servers. And in order to really streamline that, what we found is it's really simple. You want to hold on to, you have that as a cold, you have it labeled as cold and follow boss. You want to hold on to it. That's okay. But if you're at your max, well, then you're making a determination. Is this a yes or a no? And it's perfectly okay to realize we have to find the yeses, sort the no's, find the yeses. Sometimes a no is just not yet. And that's okay. But you should have a pipeline, certainly with the pipeline that we're providing, filled with as many yeses as you can.
But they're empowered to make that decision. And that's what I love about it. It's like, okay, this guy is great. He's just not transacting right now. So I'm going to keep that and do something, because now it's valuable, right? It's kind of commoditized, not to oversimplify it, but it's like, this person is valuable to me. I'm keeping them. So I'm going to actually do things to follow up with them, whether it's make a task or put them on an action plan, whatever that is. But like, this person, I've made a conscious decision to keep this person, so I'm going to do something, or, otherwise remind myself to do that. So, that's about calls versus like lead leads.
Sydney asked, are those agents at full 150 capacity not able to take calls on a newly incoming lead? So for our model, Sydney, we have all of our incoming, we call, instead of leads, we say customer inquiries, but that's just a different word for registrations. All of our incoming registrations that we're servicing are being called by our first call agent first. And then those are being vetted with some basic information. We know we have valid name, phone number, email, and we typically are going to procure from that first call agent in that call some general timeline related information. We work with a lot of second home buyers, a lot of foreign national buyers, a lot of buyers from out of state. So we typically, we need to know, are they in town? Is this a local buyer? Are they coming in next month? These qualifiers are going to be in our hands before we would give that customer to an agent. And Sydney, if they were at full capacity, then they really wouldn't be eligible. And we do weekly one-on-ones to make sure that they have wiggle room in that, because quite frankly, I think 150 is more than generous. I think it's actually more. I think it should be less than that, but we're trying to be as generous.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that you could probably get it down to 100 and then maybe have some long terms in there. I was just going through the deals tab today and or the deals reporting, and we have a customer that was in the database for 1,800 and I think 62 days.
Wow.
That just purchased, and it's been just a nurture process through there. We weren't really, not a lot of time, but we were persistent. And when they were ready, they literally came down and like, hey, we're looking at a new home build over here. Will you represent us?
Right. That's
and
awesome.
I'll just make one more note too, is when there's a migration from a team member's database in their 150 of team generated customer inquiries, that migration isn't there with an intention to take them away, the customer away. It's putting them into a warm pond, or finding out, in fact, it's cold is cold, and then they go into a separate database because they're probably not going to sell or buy. The agents have access to the warm pond to go back in and fish again anyway. Right. And so it's just trying to keep the team members as streamlined as possible. There have been already, since we implemented ponds, several times where the customer comes back into play and they're going to enter the marketplace, and the original team member is there ready and able, and they land right back together again anyway.
Yeah, that's great. And that's what I was just thinking. I was like, the reality of it is that they actually have a relationship with that person. They're probably going to respond to a prior email. Like, they don't know who they were assigned to in Follow Boss. They're going to reach out to the agent. The agent's going to go, oh crap, I got to let somebody go because I'm taking this person from the pond. So
yeah,
it makes sense. And the other thing I was going to say, which I don't want to sound rude saying this, is like, it doesn't have to be 150. Like, if they have 146, then they can take a couple. You know what I mean? Like, I think that sometimes can be an issue as well, where it's like, all right, well, and similar to both your guys' points, like maybe 150 is too much. Maybe they should have.
Yeah, they don't have to be at 150. They can, 150 is the max. Like you just can't stuff any more in.
Yeah.
Well, and let's touch on that too, is there's other metrics. It's not about, well, if they have 150, they don't have more business. Quite frankly, there are plenty of times based on smart lists, based on, do they have a ton of tasks? We're not real task heavy. Tasks, in our opinion, are a reactive stance, which is not a good way to run our business. We used to do it. We've since switched over where we're focused more on smart lists, leveraging custom fields, giving us a more proactive approach. So if we have team members, the team members are great. They'll say, I can't take anymore. In fact, right now we're getting a fair bit of that.
Yeah.
I can't take anymore. It wouldn't be fair to the new incoming customers. I have promises I need to fulfill with existing. So we have good culture where the agents, they raise their hand when they can, and then they don't raise their hand when they're not able to.
Yeah. But I think you guys, I think that we would be remiss to not mention that by doing this and by making them a part of it, in some sense or in every sense, you're creating that. How many agents realistically would out of nowhere just be like, hey, I think I've got too many leads? Like, that's not going to happen. So you guys started it and empowered them to be a part of that conversation. And so now they're not afraid to say like, wow, 150 is too much, or hey, I've got 150, I'm good. These are my right 150, and I feel good about the way I have them or what I'm doing with them or how I'm managing them. So I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't just reference the fact that you guys started that. You were the first domino of that, and you included them. it wasn't just a mandate of like, hey, good news, by tomorrow at 5, you got to be down to
For
150.
stripping your database.
Right.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was really, because when you start looking at it and you're like, you haven't spoken to this person in 2 years. They haven't been on the website in 2 years, and you're sifting through this. Why are you sifting through this all the time when you're doing an audit? During that audit, just move them out.
Yeah.
Move them out. And as to Renee's point, if we get an inquiry from somebody that's in the warm pond and we see that there's a history with an agent, we're
Right.
going to want to pair them with that original agent because they've already have a relationship with them.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an important point to mention too, for sure. I think all of that, I just love the idea of there just being a metric around it, just being some form of like, you got to pick between this, that, or the other. I just think that's really super smart. So I think, yeah, the pond thing is great. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other features. Question about custom fields. If you guys can mention some of the custom fields, and then maybe tackle smart lists a little bit too, because I think you guys are leaned in more to that too.
I'll mention the custom fields. I think it was Sydney who asked, and then I'll drop in the comments in the Facebook Live. And when this goes on YouTube, I'll drop a screenshot. But a few examples, we're a little bit different. And I think Lee might want to like wet noodle us because we don't use stages. We're going to make some pivots here. We don't use stages in the same way a lot of others do. We manage the heat in our pipeline via a custom field. So it's actually a custom field that's drop down, and then it's hot, warm, nurture, cold. So I know a lot of you are using stages. I would stick with that because that makes the most sense. It was an error we made in the beginning, but it's okay. We're leveraging it through custom
I actually kind of love
fields.
that for what it's worth, but keep going.
Well, I know I've heard you say many times, like you're doing stages wrong. And once again, I like to give credit where credit's due. Lee, Jeff even has said, Renee, you did stages wrong. I did in the beginning. We use timeline. There's a date functionality in custom fields, so you can pick by date. We use best time to contact their next visit because in Orlando, you can imagine we work with a lot of customers that are coming in from other locations. Minimum price, maximum price, buyer, seller, renter, lease, property status. So that's going to be like, are they, do they have to sell before they buy? Are they owning? Things like that. And then think of it like the MLS, all the typical criteria: 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, basic information that we can reverse prospect by then.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. I was like, that's brilliant, because then you can search by who's looking in this area for 4 bedrooms with I guess you guys don't have basements in Florida, but like,
We don't.
whatever that thing is, that's brilliant.
Now we use tags for features, like you mentioned basement. So tags for us are features and locations. Locations could be cities, towns, regions, subdivisions. But so tags for us, zip codes, cities, regions, features. There's some other in there too, but that's helping us with our reverse prospecting.
Reverse prospecting is huge to be able to reverse prospect your database, because when you have a new listing or you see a great thing something great that comes in, you can purpose that over there to show, hey, I found this for you. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, is providing value to a customer. You're looking at this database, you're looking at the MLS every day. Don't just rely on the MLS or it's a saved search from your website to give information to your customer. Go out and do the work. I'm seeing, as a listing agent on the listing side, more people coming to just directly to the properties. And when you really unpeel the onion, it's because they're not finding anybody that's giving them value. They're doing the work. They're going out. They're like, hey, I'm finding the property, so why am I going to get third-party information when I can just go right to the source? I went and found it anyway. So go find it. Use the custom fields to help you leverage and reverse prospect all that. So other things, custom fields that we're really just getting ready to implement is favorite charity, favorite sports teams, things of that nature for after the sale, to stay in contact with them too. So and if anybody's got any goodies there, we'd be happy to put them in.
That's brilliant. And I think I want to give credit where it's due. I think it was you guys that I had this conversation with, but I love that the concept of gathering that intel. But part of what I think our conversation about it was is it's kind of a script in a sense too, right? Like as you're getting along with these people, like, oh, or if they happen to mention it, like, oh, we're going to the Marlins game or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, right, important data point. And or for newer agents, they've got these custom fields that are like, oh, I should ask them if they have a house to sell. I should ask them how many bedrooms, because it's all right there in the custom fields. They don't have to
It's
go
a
look for it.
conversation.
Yeah.
It's really our custom fields go in line to how the agent conversation
Right.
should go with the customer and their spouse. That's an easy one when they say, oh, my husband. Oh, what'd you say? I'm sorry, your husband's name was? And you just ask them. They already told you they have a husband. Now
Right.
they'll give you the name. So get the name,
Right.
put it in follow-up boss. So when the next time you speak with them, you can reference both people. You have a contact with them.
This question comes up in the Follow-Up Boss success community in Facebook often, and it's around how do you manage touch points with holidays, birthdays, things of that nature. And this is one of my favorite ways we use the custom fields as we set up says birth date. And that's, again, a calendar. So you select what their birth date is. And that helps us, especially now with AM cards. We do a smart list based on birthdays over the next 45 days. So like last night, I went in and I just looked at my upcoming birthdays the next 45 days. And I went, click AM cards, schedule it out, click AM cards. Did we say how much we're an AM card integration fan? We have been receiving insane response. I think we're at like 99% response rates on our AM cards. We've literally I guess it's maybe a little less than that. Okay. In the 90%.
That's amazing.
We're loving it. Yeah, we're loving it. But we do that based on a smart list for the close date. So when they closed on their property for their house anniversary, and then their birth dates.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, it's just the 30 days out, or I've done that with some people on like a lease end date, because then they can be a buyer. Like, so
Yep.
that is, smart lists are an amazing, brilliant way to work backwards from a date. I don't recommend trying to do transaction management in that way in Follow-Up Boss, but for dates like that, especially super key, either conversion dates or just follow-up, that's totally where it's at. I love that.
Love it. Love it.
That's super cool. So let's talk a little bit about Smart List, because right before we hit go, we talked a little bit about how you guys were leaning, I think, away from tasks, but back into Smart List. Maybe I'll let you take it from there. That's what I recalled from it. So how are you using Smart List?
Jeff, you want me to touch on it?
You can touch on that one. Because
Well,
smart lists are one of those things that you just think about them all the time. It seems like it's like, oh, I can do this or I can do that. And, like, you really start reversing prospecting, and there's so many things that you can do.
You cannot have 150 Smart Lists. I'm sorry. You can have like.
That would not be good use of Smart List.
Exactly. But that brings it more down to, so we don't have to have quite as many Smart Lists, but still stay in touch with people. Go ahead, Renee.
This is what we all have to remember when we're really diving into a CRM is it's so cool that Follow-Up Boss, any data point that we have, if we think about it, there's a way we can pull that data point and essentially give us one-click access to review it. And here's what I really love. Even on the mobile app, like we have access on the mobile app. And why is that important? Because a few ways we use our smart list is we have a smart list for our heat. So we have a hot, a warm, we have a nurture, but that kind of gets tucked at the bottom because you don't have to look at that as often. But hot and warm, you need to be on it, especially these days. So even I'll talk to team members and say, you're out waiting in line at wherever you are, take a look at your smart list. By the way, the hot smart list is sorted by most recently active on the website. Coincidence? No, by design. Because if you have a hot customer that's on the website and you're sitting there just looking at your phone, waiting in line, well, you know what that is? That's code for call them. Hey, Lee, how are you? I saw that you were taking a peek at 123 Main Street. What are your thoughts? What do you think about that kitchen? oh my gosh, the front elevation is amazing. What did you think? Right. And so it's a spur of the moment way to see that your customers need a call. And also for smart lists, we also segment them by, in Orlando, we have primary residence buyers and sellers, and we have second home buyers and sellers. Many of our second home buyers and sellers are located within communities that are zoned for short-term rental, which, as you can imagine, in Orlando, being the theme park destination of the world, we have a lot of communities that have actually been doing the Airbnb type model for decades, long before there was any app. And so one of our smart lists, which is driven by custom fields, is our short-term rental community investors and buyers. And that's important for us, especially because a lot of times those buyers may need to be coming down here. And so we're monitoring that data point to see, okay, who needs a call, who's active on the website, and what properties have I had cross my desk recently that they need to be aware of, especially in this fast moving marketplace.
Yeah, that's so smart. That's such a big one. And I love that combination of custom fields. And for those who don't know, you can add custom fields now. It's been a while, but you can add custom fields as the columns, which is what you're referencing. So that you can then create a smart list by, includes this data point in a custom field. And especially that's where things like the drop downs come into play, because you don't want somebody to misspell an area, or I'll go back to my bad basement example, but you don't want somebody to misspell something because then it doesn't work in a smart list. So using that drop down format, remote owner or whatever those things are, start with that. One quick tip on smart list too, just while we're on that topic, that some people may not realize, you can save, you mentioned it, Renee, which made me think of it. You can save both the way that they are sorted, as well as different column order and or length specific to that smart list. So I don't know, that may sound like garbage to some people, and some people may be like, oh my goodness, that's amazing, I didn't know you could do that. But you can set up each smart list differently as far as the columns you see, the order and size of those columns. But I think to your point, without getting too in the weeds on that, I think to your point, being intentional and spending that time to set them up to do what you need to do is going to pay dividends. And further, I love that you guys are so honest about kind of taking a step back and saying, hey, this is great. Like, yeah, we're probably pretty good users, but why don't we just do an audit? Why don't we step back a minute and kind of step out of that classic, like we've always done it this way? Because that's just, so many people get into that, like, well, we do it this way and it's fine. But I love that you guys have done that. So did we miss anything? And I see we have a question. I'll grab that in a quick second. I mean, I know there's obviously a ton of different Follow Boss features, but we covered ponds, custom fields, smart lists, the website, the top of the funnel, and the evolution of that. Is there anything else specific to Follow Boss features that you guys want to cover before we dive into some questions?
I think that, once again, just talking about sorting, there's so many different ways you can sort your customers. You can sort with your custom fields, reverse prospecting and sorting who you're looking for, repurposing content by sorting. When you can start repurposing, making one piece of content and repurposing it for multiple people that it's going to be specifically relevant to, it's so much better than doing a mass email. You do a mass email, what happens? You send the wrong content, they're going to unsubscribe. But if you have the custom field in there that that, okay, this is going to be relevant to them, you're going to get conversation out of that. So it's really, you can really use it to make conversation, and take that one piece of content that you did and use it over and over again. We talk about it to our team all the time, have a library of it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I thought the same thing when you're talking about the part-time, or not part-time, but the Airbnb type owners, that you don't need to send them like, hey, we found some more property. We found some more single family $250,000 properties we'd love to send you. Like, that doesn't make sense. So
yep. It's very specific. And for us, with those buyers, they are based on zoning and HOA regulations.
Right.
So for us being the authority and the knowledge base, we're sending them specific to a subdivision, sometimes even a subdivision within a subdivision.
Right.
So it's a really great tool. I want to share this, Lee, if I may, about when I get asked so often, you're so into the CRM and you're so advanced. And here's the thing. We're not that advanced. I know that, Lee, you've been gracious enough to ask us to come on the show, and we've had some opportunity to share conversations. We're so grateful for that. There are so many people using Follow Up Boss at an even higher level. I just try to stay focused on, we can become better each and every day, but I don't let the fact that we're not the best at it trip me up from being in it, because the process is where we're learning. So I'm grateful for you and all the leaders that are in the group who continue to share and collaborate. I think people need to get out of that fear and just say, dive in, start filling it out. Because the cool thing is when you have a data point, you can pull the data point. If the data point isn't filled out, CRM doesn't do anyone a bit of good.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. And thank you for saying that. I wish more people would come at it from that. I think a lot of us, myself included, tend to kind of come from hey, here's how you can do this, or here's a way to do that. But I don't think any of us none of us have this magical finish line of where, I mean, my account included, like, it's pretty good. It's not perfect. It's not amazing. Like, you just, it is a process. And similar to what you said earlier, Renee, is that new features come out all the time. And so it's like, how do we implement this new feature? And I don't know if you officially said this, but I'll give you credit for it either way. It's like, it also doesn't mean you have to jump onto that brand new feature the minute it comes out, because maybe it isn't for you. Like, just because there is a pond, if the pond doesn't work for your business model, or you're going to forget to look at it, then maybe you don't need to spend an afternoon setting up ponds. Like, that's okay. But I think it's important to just acknowledge that. And I love that you said it that way, Renee. Like, I don't think any of us can say that we have found the magical finish line of Follow Up Boss, but we're all working at it, every day. The two questions I want to tackle. Somebody asked, Braden asked about lead generation software from website to Follow Up Boss. I think there's just an integration there. Is that right, Jeff?
It's an integration. Yeah, it just shows up in Follow Up Boss. Actually, the only thing that we are doing from our website is setting the consumer up on a saved search right now. Everything else, it's all done through Follow Up Boss. It shows up in Follow Up Boss, and then we service the customer through Follow Up Boss. We change the save search that's going to feed them based on which website they signed up on.
That's great. I love that. So yeah, that's pretty straight ahead. And then somebody else, Damon, asked about getting the team to embrace adoption. Let's talk about adoption.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down, you kind of have to hold them accountable. If you're having a team, one of the big reasons people join teams is accountability. And if you're going to give them your book of business, you need to hold them accountable of it. And how can you hold them accountable when you don't know what's going on with it? So just that alone, if you talk to your team and like, this isn't, this isn't free what we are giving you. I think that's a lot. Teams probably think, or agents think, like, oh, that just keeps on coming. It's time consuming to do, especially the way we do it with the organic SEO. And that's not free either. Right. I mean, just building the content. We got to build the content. It's a long game. It's sometimes you wish you just put the credit card down and the leads come, and then you take the credit card off when they're done. But this is a long-term play that we're doing here. So you have to be accountable. And I think that when we set the dialer up, that really made it just brought accountability to the next level for us.
Yeah.
And then we started also putting up to our team meetings leaderboards and things along that line. So they could see, like, this is what's going on. Now I'm starting to do is I'm starting to go into call logs to how many calls did you make to customers 90 days ago? How many pending do you have today?
Right.
Is there a correlation there? Typically.
Right. Yeah. And to speak to that for a quick second, is there is some deeper call reporting now in reporting. So if you're using that dialer system, there's a specific call reporting tab now as well that shows you by agent. Although by source, it also shows you number of calls. They could be older leads, but it's by source. So really good intel around that for sure. And then Damon also asked what lead generation platform, and you mentioned earlier that you're technically using Webmasters as your platform.
Using Webmasters, we're using we have KV Core that we have stuff coming through. We have referral partners that we have a lot of referral partners that stuff comes through. So it's a lot of different majority. One great thing with Follow Up Boss, majority of them translate. There's a couple of referral partners that we have to manually input leads, but the majority of sources come in and it's able to just grab it and they show up there, and then we can distribute it how we need to distribute it.
That's great.
I'd like to touch on the adoption real quick. I know we're at the top of the hour. Adoption is a cultural fit in an organization. And I like being as transparent as possible. And I'll say that there have definitely been times where an incoming team member joins the team and then realizes, oh my goodness, they were right. They were serious. They really do live by this platform, Follow Up Boss. And as much as we're transparent through the HR process of get ready, because we're going to work together at treating our business like a business and have all the metrics to measure it. And we say, like, if it didn't happen in Follow Up Boss, the team knows. Don't even bring it to me. You have a question. Right. First thing I say is, what's the name? Right. But if you have that set as a culture and you're okay that sometimes it works out for people and sometimes it doesn't, it's okay with us. So that combined with the dialer, which you didn't even know we were going to talk about today, Lee, but yes, that's where the adoption came in.
That's awesome. I love that. Go ahead, John.
And we've had to part with team members for a culture of adoption, because if how do you have your book of business going out if you don't know what's happening with it? It's money out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all so well said. I think I love how open and honest you guys are about all that. I love that you are kind of students of the platform in some sense. I think we can all learn a bit from that. And I think the idea that even the way we broke it down of like, okay, well, because here's the thing, I also know, and as sharp as you guys are with all this, I'd be willing to bet you probably didn't sit down in one afternoon and make all the smart lists and make all the custom fields and make all the you've done it systematically. You've asked questions of the team of what do they actually use, or maybe even more than asking it, it's recorded in the platform. So you can go see how many people are in this custom field. Are people using this custom field? But I just love that you've really covered that well today. I think of that evolution of we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, then we're going to do this. And here's the thing, sad or not, when you get to the end of that, you're going to go back and do it all over again. You're going to be, oh, now
it's a living, breathing thing. It's humans. It's humans.
There's so much gold happening in this group that the Follow Up Boss group that we see, and I'm constantly looking at it. What are people doing here? So pay attention to the group. Everybody, there's a lot of transparency going on here, which it helps everybody. If you're going to be transparent, then somebody else is going to be transparent. Oh, and we do this, but did you try this? And you can build together.
For sure. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So 2 quick plugs for that. If you're not in the Follow Up Boss Success community on Facebook, you should be. Just request it. They'll ask a couple of quick questions to verify that you're an actual customer, but definitely check that out. Also, these recordings stream live to that group, so you can always find them there the minute that they happen. They're also always added to the Follow Up Boss YouTube channel. So be sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's a playlist for all the office hours, all the bosses and actions, all the boss methods. There's an unbelievable amount of free content there. And to Jeff's point, there are so many people like you guys sharing just great information that should be helpful to everybody. So thank you guys so much for being on. Everything you shared was incredibly valuable.
Thanks for having
Well,
us.
we
Lee.
appreciate you. And to everyone watching, there are a few things that we have in our business that when we pour in time and love and even a budget, will pay us back in dividends. Your CRM and Follow Up Boss is that. It is well worth whatever you love on in that database. It's going to pay you back.
That's amazing. We'll wrap with that. Thank you guys so much. And we'll have you back. We'll do this again soon.
We appreciate you,
Love it.
Lee.
Thanks,
Take
Lee.
care,
Take care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.